of looking, thus saith the wise Alondo. When the shadows descend upon the lands, our divine Lord will walk alongside us as equals. So saith the great Alondo. The world shall wander the earth, and such a pestilence will follow in his wake that all who know of his passing shall be struck down by the plague.
Welcome back to Mages and Murderdads, the best show dedicated to the games beyond Baldur's Gate. This is episode 57, and we're playing Torment, Tides of Numenera. I'm Cameron.
And I'm Danny, and I play Balthazar.
Oh, I wonder, what's Balthazar up to, Danny?
Do you want to know the whole kit and caboodle?
You know what? I think I need a recap.
You need a recap.
The whole story.
It's been a little bit. This is our post-holiday episode.
Well, what's interesting is that real-time listeners know that it's been like a month and a half or something, maybe even 2 months since we've recorded an episode. Mm-hmm. But people who are just blitzing through this, the
people who are joining us when they heard about us starting our playthrough of Pillars of Eternity 4, The Endless Struggle, they're working their way through the backlog, and this is just another episode.
Pillars of Eternity 5. There's more gods, I guess.
there's more gods, and we hate them.
And you know what? They hate us too.
Oh, that finally we get our canonical character of like provincial like country bumpkin who says, "Call me old fashioned,
but I hate the gods. They suck."
Have you played these video games to talk about it?
Mm-hmm. Jeff Pitchfork, the guy who hates the gods. That's my next character in the next RPG we play.
Is that just, are you going to create a whole party of Jeff Pitchforks in Icewind Dale? A game that I'm dying to get to after playing this, by the way.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that's, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, you're cleverly maneuvering your way out of having to summarize the story.
No, I'm summarizing the story so far. So this is a game where we play the last cast-off, and we are the most recent cast-off incarnation of a constantly reincarnating deity called the Changing God. We have been thrown to the ninth world, this place that this game takes place in, I suppose, and we meet some folks, and I guess really interesting in terms of our big quest is we just want to fix our resonance chamber, which is the cantankerous machine that we fell to Earth on, and yeah, so we met some folks, and we're trying to figure out how to fix this, and eventually somebody in town says, "Oh, you got to go to this special place. You got to go to the place where all the dead heroes are," and that's where this episode begins.
Well, that's very interesting that you skipped several episodes worth of content there in the middle.
I mean, that's how I always do this, though. Is like the further it goes on, the more I'm gonna like skip in the middle.
But, I bring it up, not just because you're skipping, but because none of that matters.
Yeah, no, it is a complete plot cul-de-sac. Thank you. At first, there's a little bit, I was detecting a little bit of, like, accusatory, like, Danny, you're slacking, but no, thank you for vindicating me. None, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle of this, like, game, like, the last 4 hours that we played, doesn't really matter, does it?
Does not seem to in any measurable way. Other than talking to Matt Kenna, finding her, that mattered. But all the stuff we did along the way, I don't feel like I learned all that much about the world. I don't feel like I have a lot of insight into the things that now have come along afterward. Just kind of a big... I mean, cool stuff happened. Sure. The Fifth Eye Tavern. That's some of the best storytelling, I think, in one of these games that we've encountered. I really enjoy that whole little thing. But,
it is a little different when you look back to how we would have to summarize the plot of Planescape Torment, compared to this versus like a Baldur's Gate game versus this. Planescape Torment, we were gated by, like, we had to meet important people, but our goal would shift, right? Like, at first it was like, we got to find Farad, right? That was the big thing. And it, like, shifted. We were always trying to, like, figure out the nature of our being, but the vector through which we had to do that was kind of constantly changing.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too about, because as I just said that, I thought, well, the chapter 2 of Baldur's Gate 2 is kind of like this, right? The money gathering thing. But then I thought, no, everywhere you go in Baldur's or in Athkatla, in the city, everywhere you go there's shades of the Thieves Guild versus the vampire stuff going on. And there's a lot of, like, information that you're learning about that. And you can do a very long quest, the Thieves Guild stuff or the vampire stuff, that gives you a whole lot of information. And that's secondary. You don't have to do those things. But optionally, you can get a lot of information about the big politics of the mission that you're on.
Yeah.
But I did not, like, there was no opportunity in the kind of first section of this game for me to, like, learn a whole bunch about Matt Kinna and the relationship of the changing god to Matt Kinna and things like that. It was me and my relationship to the changing god into other cast-offs, which basically just seems to be like, they're people.
They're ball-spawn.
Yeah, they're ball-spawn.
That's just, we're about to go to that wild town where all the ballspawn have, like, taken refuge, basically.
We're not
not this episode.
Jump ahead.
Not this episode, but yeah. No, I agree with you, and also there's an element of, like, the world feels like it's more organically put together in a Planescape Torment, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to accomplish X. We're trying to, like, figure out who we are. But in order to do that, the goals are, the target's shifting one way or another based on the knowledge we have. Whereas this game, it's like, we need to fix the resonance chamber. Okay. And every time we, like, go to the person that we think will be able to fix it, they're just like, oh, the princess is in another castle.
Yes. Well, not even, well, It's kind of worse than that.
It's kind of worse than that.
Because I understand the trick that the game is trying to pull. Meaning that this game is trying to set up a scenario where you have the reveal that we got in Planescape Torment, right? Which was that the room you woke up in is the room that is the gateway to the end of the game. And we had to do all this work, right?
They gave up the ghost too early.
Exactly. It's like, it was like, oh, they, like, could not wait to get that reference jammed in here, right? And so it's like, yeah, of course we're going back there, but, like, Planescape Torment was not cool because we got to go back to where we came from.
It was cool because you didn't know that until the very end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was a reveal to it, and that meant you could, in the way that you're talking about it, you could plot out the game based on who you were talking to or what items you got or things like that, even though ultimately it is kind of circular. But here, at the very beginning of the game, it's just like, listen, it's circular, and you're going to forget about this resonance chamber for hours at a time.
Because we're going to make you sit through combats that take hours and hours of your life.
Okay, well, we're going to learn a little bit about that. I didn't have any of that.
Not in this episode.
I didn't have this in either of the apps.
Okay.
That we're gonna record. Okay. We're kind of recording 2 episodes at one time for people at home, so they know that. But yeah, we took an airship at the end of the last episode to get to the Valley of Dead Heroes. What did you think about this place?
I don't like this location. Okay. On a visceral level, I don't like the Valley of Dead Heroes. I think that there is a lot to be said for balancing tropes and cliches with doing new interesting things with environmental design, right? I think that there's this game, when it's doing well with environmental design and like the way these areas look, it's doing great. I'll say that. I think that There are elements I've seen in various levels that look really nice. But let me just say, the Valley of Dead Heroes has interesting little features in it, but it looks like a hodgepodge of nonsense. Like, it looks like a bunch of random stuff thrown together. And it is very disorienting on that level. It does not, like, I remember, like, it was several weeks before I, like, booted the game back up again. And I looked at this place, and I had to, like, read my journal to figure out what this place represented, because it just looks like nonsense. It looks like a billion different things. Am I, like, completely alone here?
No, I think that's right. And I don't know why it's like this.
Well, and see, when we had like weird things that happened in Siege of Dragonspear or Baldur's Gate 2, we were able to give the excuse, oh, these are just leftover assets from Planescape Torment, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have that excuse in this game. It does that they don't have that level of excuse.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up here an area map just to kind of describe it. So what it is like it's like a big area that's built into a cliff. Mm-hmm. It has in the middle of it a giant skull, like an animal skull.
Yeah, it looked like a feline, maybe.
Yeah, some sort of cat skull. Around that is like a big wall that's kind of a necropolis. It's got some big statues. There's like a big lava flow coming from the left side of the screen.
Yes.
It's like surrounding the skull, and then there's like pipes that are piping it off the edge of the cliff. You can go in the necropolis. There's all these like alcoves. There's just a big ass portal floating in the sky for no reason. You navigate this whole area by going into these weird like rift portals and going
that are color coded.
Yeah, it's literal nonsense.
it's so it's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to me, and it's not because it's just nonsense. Like look, when you first step outside the residence chamber thing, there's a lot of nonsense there too. But what frustrates me is that with the Valley of Dead Heroes, certain themes are supposed to be evoked here, right? Like this is a weird Ninth World take on a tomb or network of tombs, like this weird special sci-fi fantasy cemetery. Well, and it's so hodgepodgey. I don't even get that. I have to read the journal to like figure out what this place is.
Yeah, I mean, what's even... it's such a weirdly blown opportunity, right? I was going to say wasted. I don't think it's wasted. I think it does maybe what it's trying to do, but it does not evoke the feelings that it's supposed to be evoking. Because what is like lore-wise, to me, very cool about this is like that on one hand, human beings know what this is for, right? It has a necropolis, there's tombs, there's all that kind of stuff. But the other side is it's a memorial, and it's a memorial to names and people that we have no access to, right? So it's kind of like this massive, unthinkable, like Vietnam Wall if you couldn't read the names, right?
Yeah.
It's meant to have like, this massive war, this huge area that is the tomb of billions of unknown soldiers, right? It's supposed to have that aura of mystery and weirdness or whatever, and there's a giant cat skull and like a weird cat puzzle in the middle of it that just ruins any of those vibes. So like on one hand, like both things are true, right? What you're pointing out is that it does not visually signify any of the things that the game itself is telling us it's supposed to. On the other hand, it doesn't even deliver the emotions that it's supposed to. So it by any measure, I think that it's failing what it says it's trying to do. That's a bummer.
Yeah. But in any case, we arrive in the Valley of Dead Heroes, and we're immediately kind of cast into the central conflict of the area, which is we have on one side, we have the memorialists, which I guess are kind of an academic religious order, seeking to keep the sacred and like the names written down and like the order here in this, weird Vietnam memorial situation, as you were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
And we also have the Children of the Endless Gate, which is a cult that I mentioned briefly as far as with the murder mystery earlier. But anyway, I guess the story here is that these Children of the Endless Gate have kind of recently like set up shop. Like you can talk to several people in this zone that seem to intimate that like this is a conflict that's like been going on for at least a little bit. It's not like this conflict just broke out as we came here. I don't know, like what was your sense of the timeline?
Of like how long they've been going and things like that? I have no idea. It had to have like I guess my assumption is like
it can't be 100 years. I'll tell you that right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you have these cultists that are basically have attempted to hijack one of the tombs in order to affect this religious prophecy, which I did like the full side quest to like resolve the Children of the Endless Gate. Did you do one of those?
No, not even remotely.
Okay, so I can give you a little bit more insight into that. That was actually one of the more interesting things that happened. But anyway, so the moment you come in, you have to make a choice, right? Because there's a fight about to break out in front of you. What did you choose?
So there's like some memorialists, and they're basically just being bullied.
Yeah.
Right. By these Endless Gate people, and I think
cultists, I guess is safe to say.
Yeah. I
Sure.
mean, I don't. Unclear. This is an aside, but I understand that like the whole Ninth World Numenera kind of deal is like everything is partial information and it's all big, weird, Planescape-y kind of stuff. But at some point, much like the visual design of this area, it all just kind of collapses into mush of like proper names. And when that really clicks, I think it is cool. But most of the time, like that framework is doing very little for me. Like I found this game, I was going to say stressful, but not stressful, but just like time consuming and eventually wearying to read through. But that's a little bit to the side. So I chose the Memorialists because they were not initiating this conflict. And so I said, hey, cult people, get out of here. And I like used my intimidate skill and they went away.
I did that too. I have like a bug that I have as an accessory that gives me extra intimidate skill or something like that. It's like a bug or a bracer. They're the exact same thing in this game. There's no like reality doesn't matter. Like everything is just everything. That's kind of my feeling in this game. It could be a bracelet, it could be a bug. No. Could be a sword, could be a thought, could be like just a thought that you've had. You know, whatever. In any case, I intimidated those cultists too, and there are a couple of these people, and they kind of point us. Gosh, it's such a lore dump when you first talk to these two memorialists because they tell you what the value of dead heroes is. They kind of fill you in, and you're coming here specifically to get to one particular tomb, right? Like you want access to your like the Changing God or Last Cast-Off tomb, I guess.
You are coming here to get the hell out of here as fast as possible.
Yes.
Like this is a like speed bump on your heroic quest to like play this game. But you were doing in very much a Planescape Torment kind of way. You were trying to find the Changing God's tomb in order to open the portal to Miel Avest, which is like the place where the cast-offs hang out.
So they give you a bunch of that, and I figure, okay, well, I gotta find here. I go to the center area with this cat. Is there a puzzle associated with this cat skull?
Yeah, so there's a big cat skull, and there's like a statue of a cat kind of in the eyeball. And you gotta do a puzzle in there. You didn't do that?
No.
You do that puzzle in order to figure out. Oh, I have my notes here. I don't remember why I did it.
Well, you said it made no sense in the notes here. You say makes no sense.
Yeah. It's about getting a name. So I had to. Well, we'll talk about it in just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle of the next thing you do with the memorialists. So,
well, in this central area, the Nyctothera demon is roving around. Do you remember that guy?
No, I don't.
No, it's the giant squid that's in the center of the starting area that I've set loose.
Oh, he's not there for me because I didn't set him loose.
Yeah, I set him loose and he's there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking. I was thinking of stuff that's actually in here to begin with. Well, what's he up to?
He's just roving around with his syringe tentacles, just attacking everyone.
Really?
Yeah, he's real mean.
You don't have to fight him, do you?
You have to, like, it really constrains your movement in the area. You can't go above, like, the central, you kind of have to go the long way around every time you want to get around the area because you can't go above the central plateau, like, platform thing.
Well, that's just a real kick in the old tuchus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got, like, 180 hit points.
You know, that is something that, I mean, I'm sure you felt the pain of just a little bit, but I don't really know, like, what my combat skills should be. Mm-hmm. You know, there's nothing to measure your progress against in this game, which in some ways is really liberating. But sometimes, you know, when the game forces you into fights or things like that, I look at how many hit points, for example, that I have, and how many hit points everything else in the game has, and I think, oh, there might be something going on that's bad here.
Yeah.
I might
as
be
opposed
not
to
good.
As opposed to Baldur's Gate, where every 20 minutes you were set against like a shadow evil version of your party, or like a party of 6, you know, various classed hobgoblins, like well balanced, like equipped hobgoblins, and you were like constantly meeting the metric, right?
Yeah.
Like hobgoblins are the measure of all things, and you were constantly being evaluated. And if you were found lacking, you're not going to be surprised in Baldur's Gate when you find out that you suck at combat, because you've known it. You've known it from the beginning.
Yeah, you're gonna feel that pain, and you go, oh, I guess I don't fight these guys for a while, and you're gonna do something else.
Yeah,
right. Oh yeah, that's a wizard with a globe of invulnerability.
Yeah,
I'll do that later.
Whereas combat in this game is so obfuscated by like 50 layers of negative fettles. and like the first 5 turns of combat are just various like enemies like targeting each other with like various positive and negative fettles, all of which have unique names. There aren't like keywords. It's right. It's
yes.
So it's just like, oh, Death's Gate. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but I guess it's something. And so.
You remember at the end of Planescape Torment when I was talking about how cool I thought it was that there were those like Final Fantasy VII animations for all the high-level spells?
Yeah.
And I was like, it would be awesome if those were in Baldur's Gate, if those were like peppered throughout a game. Mm-hmm. I was wrong. Because all of the Fettle kind of stuff in this game, they're not that elaborate, but the animation times are very long. And
yes.
I hate it.
Yeah. And it insult to injury that it's turn-based, right?
Yes.
Like, it's one thing if like if the real-time combat is like occasionally interrupted by like an animation. I feel like that is much easier to swallow than it's your turn. It's already going to take like just slightly too long, just like 1.2 seconds between each turn. Have you noticed this about this game?
Yeah.
It's like every time somebody's turn ends, it's just like uncomfortably long between when the next turn begins, because the camera's got to do a very smooth, like, cool shift between each character. It's like everything's so polished, you're just sliding away all the time.
Yeah. It is torture. But yeah, so there's a lot of like people running around here. So there was like the guy with 3 heads. Did you see that guy?
Yeah.
Did you do his quest line?
I didn't do his quest line, but I chatted with him about how he had 3 heads. I talked to the guy with like a metal helmet, like a special adamantium helmet, just fused to his skull. Mm-hmm. He's the merchant around here. He's just got dead folks around him, like dead cultists. He's like, yeah, they don't bother me.
I murder them all.
I murder them.
Interesting that each of the companions in this game has their own kind of little quest line. Mm-hmm. And 2 of them you can kind of do stuff with here. The first one is Aridus, which is one of the cooler characters in this game or any game. I've talked a little bit about him before, but he's the dude who's like just very excited about adventure. He's always talking about like wanting to get on down the road and to fight bad guys. I mean, he's basically a parody of Minsk, right? Or in the way that Minsk is like overzealous because he is kind of a traditional fantasy hero. He's almost this parody of a fantasy hero. Aridus is the same way. He's always trying to chop things apart and fight dudes or whatever. And when you come into the Valley of Dead Heroes, Aridus says, hey, let's just avoid any of those alcoves, over there near the necropolis. Let's not go there. And because I have read thoughts as one of my skills, I can see in his head these 2 voices talking to one another. And they're like, yes, he's buying it. We're not going to go to that alcove. And so I was like, all right, well, we got to go to that alcove. And in the alcove, there was like a shepherd's crook and a black box with like 2 little figures drawn on it that was open, and there was like some sheep's wool or something like that. And Aridus like got real agitated. He got really angry, and I was like, listen, we came here because I can hear these, I can read your thoughts, I can see these weird things talking to each other. What's going on with that? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, you have a big yellow glowing aura around your body, right? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he starts kind of like breaking down a little bit, having some weird mental stuff going on. And then I got like a little ding in my head that was like, you should go check out the Mind Palace or whatever it's called. The Nexus.
The Labyrinth.
The Labyrinth. There we go. No, it's the Nexus where all the heroes of the Storm heroes live.
Yes.
But so I got to kind of move one of those side people quests along. Yeah.
Interesting. There's also like a group of, I guess, fugitives from the Endless War up in the north, the northwest. Mm-hmm. You could rest there for 100 big ones.
Yeah, it's a real kick in the butt to have to rest in this game. I think I've spent basically all of my money on resting at various points.
I think that's what money is for in this game.
Well, theoretically, you could buy like Numenera and stuff, but I don't have enough money for that.
You could buy the thing in the subtitle? Sure, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah. All like artifacts in this game, they're called Numenera. Mm-hmm. So like your little bug thing.
Yeah.
Now, why are they tides of Numenera? I don't know. Does that make sense?
There are tides.
And there are Numenera. You put them together. When you're here, you're family. I don't know.
No. This game is Outback Steakhouse. There's no rules. There's just right.
Did you talk to? I thought those refugees were cool, but they did not. Like, they had no information to give me about anything going on, which I thought was kind of a bummer.
It's interesting. You cast them as refugees, and I cast them as deserters. I thought that they were, like, participants in the Endless War, and they absconded. Like, they went AWOL.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. I guess they're not refugees.
You can't be a refugee if you're a persecutor.
Well, who's to say who's right? We're going to learn a little bit about that in the next episode. Mm-hmm. When no one's right, everybody's wrong. Did you talk to Barricale?
Which one was Barricale?
Barricale is like someone who is a scout from the Endless War, who's trying to get to Miela Vest. She's just walking around, and you talk to her, and she's like, "Yep, well, I came here to go to Miela Vest and portal was closed. You know anything about that? And I was like, no, I kind of don't. I don't know anything about that. And she said, well, I'm going to try to get over this stupid mountain to get there, I guess. But just letting you know, the Sorrow is on the hunt. Bye! So it's just like, oh man, we gotta have an NPC with some exposition about the world state in here. Gotta throw that on there. But yeah. But those are all secondary. Like, there's a bunch of secondary quests here, and I'll be honest, I did not do most of them.
I think it was the name of the person we'd meet at the very beginning is like Ronos.
Okay.
Kai Soul. And I'm only referencing it here because I'm gonna be referencing him later, like a couple things after this side quest. But I think that we both, like, kind of after you look in the valley, you got to go in the necropolis itself, which is where all the tombs are, and we immediately see some just real rude behavior in here.
Yes. So the cultists have a bunch of the memorialists held hostage.
Yes.
And the reason they're doing that is that basically the necropolis is like, you know, there are thousands of tombs. And
even, who knows, more, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think we get access to 4 numbers or 3 numbers to, like,
oh, we get access to, like, upwards of 6.
Oh, okay.
There are a couple for bonus quests, yeah.
Gotcha. But yes, there's a lot of different... I'm just saying, like, the maximum digits. So there's, like...
Oh, yeah.
It's like a... What do you call it? Like a... You know, like a lock that you would use. What's that called? Combination lock. And so the idea is the cultists want to find one particular tomb, but they don't know where it is. And so they're trying to hold these memorialists hostage to get that information from them. I solved this. I was trying to think about that cat quest earlier. I solved this by talking to the memorialist and saying, like, listen, they're gonna murder you. They're gonna do it. The best thing you can do is give this to me, and I'll, like, try to negotiate to the best of my ability. And they didn't want to share that information with me, and she told me if I could figure out the name of the... Gosh, I don't even remember now. A particular name, maybe of the first memorialist or something like that. That I could do it.
It was of a prince, if I recall.
Of a prince. Anyway, and I just had to, like, run around and do all kinds of stuff, and it eventually ended up with me talking to all the memorialists and then going and clicking on that cat, the cat statue in the middle of the thing, and answering some riddles based on the information I got from those people. And in its description, in the way it asked the questions, the prince was in the final question. And so I was able to take that information back to the memorialist and give the cultists the information. And then I let the cultists sacrifice the memorialist to their evil dark god.
Why'd you do that?
I just didn't care anymore. I was just seeing what would happen. Because I remembered doing the quest back when I played this game the first time. And I think I did it, like, the best possible way. You know, like, took the good path. And I was just interested in seeing what else happened.
I tried to persuade the cultists to let the memorialists go. I also talked to the memorialists, and they did not trust me with the information. And I figured if they didn't trust me with the information because I was still, like, on the fence, right? So I figured what I have to do is I have to give them a clear sign that I am on their side. So I tried to, like, persuade or intimidate the cultists into letting them go, but that didn't work. So I, like, went into combat a couple times to try to, like, beat these cultists. But there's like 5 of them. So at that point you're at, like, a 9-person combat. And it takes a long time, and I reloaded, like, twice. And eventually the protagonist dies first. And when I went back, I was able to kill the head cultist before the protagonist died, the last cast-off died. And when I came back, all the cultists was like, oh, snap, we're gonna run away. So that worked. So if all else fails, just, like, fight and try to kill the top guy. And maybe if the last cast-off dies and you come back, because that's a thing you can do. Everybody else will be really afraid because you.
Yeah,
just came
why
back
can
to
we do
life.
that? Do you know?
All the cast-offs are immortal.
Not all of them, though, because the ones in the Fifth Eye weren't immortal. Some of them died.
Is that true?
Yeah, remember the one guy died? He was a holographic projection because he got exploded by Cthulhu or whatever. Maybe that was extenuating circumstances.
I think that might have been super death.
Yeah.
That wasn't just vanilla death. That was like French vanilla death.
I guess maybe a problem here is I've not seen any other cast-offs die to prove this to me.
Well, I know that like from later on and also previous conversations we've had that like Matt Kina is hundreds of years old. Like when we entered Paz's mind through the Mirrorcaster, that was a memory that was hundreds of years old.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Yeah.
The defeat by the Sand Knights.
Yeah, the Sand Knights, that's correct.
Yeah,
Boy.
you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
so. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish there was just maybe more, because we keep getting all these examples of deep time, you know, of like the genocide or whatever that guy's name was.
Yeah.
And like the cast-offs were, I guess some of them were around for that, but not all of them, and it you know, kind of unclear. But.
I think the weird thing is that before you're a cast-off, you are mortal. Right?
No, you're just the changing god.
Well, I know, but the changing god is like actually mortal because the changing god has to go through all these husks.
I think he just gets rid of you when he's tired of you, not because he's gonna die.
Not because it has to. I don't know. There has to be some necessity to it, right? That was my understanding is that like the changing god must go through these manifestations. So it's actually
No, because there's a discussion later where there's kind of a metaphysics of what the changing god is up to that's floated, which is saying that each body is an improved body. That the changing god is just constantly creating new bodies in order to make better ones. And so it's not a necessity, it's just an option. I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, unclear.
Yeah, I don't know why this would be like, from a writerly perspective, why you would choose to make this unclear.
Sure.
You know? But anyway.
But eventually, one way or the other, we are able to secure this 4-digit code. And with this 4-digit code, we are able to go to, I guess, the last cast-off's tomb, a la Planescape Torment, like, what? That was about a third of the way, halfway through the game, I would say.
Yeah, maybe a little bit before that.
Yeah.
Did you know how to find the last cast-offs thing? Like, this tomb code?
Yeah. It's like in my quest journal.
Oh,
Well, I mean, ultimately, like, once I got the thing working, I had, like, several codes that I had, quote-unquote, learned from various sources, and it was just already pre-populated. Like, I didn't manually need to enter them in.
Yeah,
So-
I really got wrecked by this because I was keeping track of all the codes that I'd gotten. I was, like, writing them down in my notes that I take while I play the game, you know, so we can type up our show notes or whatever. And I wrote down every single code, and I probably got like 4 or something from the various different people, you know, side questy kind of people that are in this area. I wrote them all down, and I manually typed them in, and none of them took me to the thing, you know, to the last cast-off, or the cast-offs, or the Changing Gods doom. Ugh, sorry. And so then I like scoured every conversation again. I went and talked to everybody again, walked all around this whole thing. I could not find it. I did like some additional side quests. I did like the Phoenix side quest that's there. I did all kinds of stuff. And I eventually, and this is literally after like 30 minutes of just re-talking to everyone, I just like went on Google and I was like, what's the tomb? And yeah, you just click on the thing that's like, here are the codes you remember.
Oh, it's just, okay, there you go. And
It's
just one you already
auto-populated.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But no one tells you that.
no one told you.
I know. I was hoisted by my
Sometimes
own
you just click
industrious
through.
nature.
Sometimes you just click through.
Ugh. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I did find another tomb where they kind of moved another party member quest forward. Callistaga, who, if you remember from a couple episodes ago, we talked about how she's shattered kind of across dimensions. And she's always got these kind of ghostly sisters, she calls them, who are alternate reality versions of herself. And she found this kind of harp thing that allowed her to harmonize some frequency stuff and discover some more stuff about her shatteredness, which is cool. Yep.
Did you go to any other interesting rooms before the last cast off?
I found a guy called Oddwald the Sane. Did you find him?
Yeah, I remember him.
He's like you can buy stuff from him.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it.
Did you go to the gateway of the Children of the Endless Gate?
I remembered from the last time I played this game that was I just remembered it being I remember not enjoying it. Maybe I'll say that. I didn't remember why, and I just thought, I bet there's a big fight down there. And so I just didn't go. And I went right to my normal gate, and I whipped right through that thing and went on to the next part of the game.
Well, the memorialist that you save at the entrance to the necropolis asks that you fix this cultist problem once and for all, that you defeat them. And you're able to go to this particular tomb where there is just an open gate to what could only be described as like some hell realm, right? There are 3 cultists there when you arrive, and they're like, oh, it's ready, we're ready to go, let's do it. And they just like jump into the portal, and it's just like the whole room's covered in blood. So when you go and activate the portal, the game says, hey, if you go here, you ain't coming back, it's gonna be rough. So I went in, naturally.
Sure.
And first thing you see is like, it looks like a bed sheet, like it's blackness and like a path that's just floating in the blackness, right? First thing you see is like a brownish gray bed sheet just floating in the wind. And you go up to it, and it's like, it's just all flesh, and there's just faces on it. And they're all just like screaming and moaning because they're in horrible pain. And they say, hey, like some of them are begging you to strike it down and smite them and like get rid of them. And others are like, don't do it. You'll only make him stronger. They don't really say who him is, but like they say the Lord or whatever. So I smite it. And then when I do that, there's like a path hidden behind it, and you're able to go on the path. And you can do this 4 more times. Basically, the layout of this level, I did not see the full layout, but I got the picture, is imagine like a big S that you eventually get to your destination, but you can take a line through the S, like a $sign, like the line through the $sign, to like get there quickly. But at every intersection, you have to kill another flesh bed sheet. And every time they talk about how you're making the Lord stronger.
And every time they're telling you this, you're just smiting that thing out of your way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because otherwise, I think that you have to like get into a fight at every like S curve. So I'm taking the shortcut.
Okay.
In any case, there is a... I get to the end, and I meet the cultist that ran away from like the second, third episode, the murder mystery, the one that got away that was actually guilty of the murders.
Oh yeah.
She's just hanging out, and she's like, "Yeah, it kind of sucks here, but you take what you could get." I swear to God, that is the tone of the conversation. She's like, "Yeah, I had to come here, but it's whatever."
Yeah, if you're behind the flesh billowing blanket, it looks okay. They can't see you. They don't talk to you.
But anyway, there's this person named Inafir here, who I gather is like the lord of this endless horror. And I do that, and I'm here in the Endless Gate, and I talk to him, and he's kind of like a very Farad type character.
Okay.
He's just kind of like a very gross, sickly, old man that is mean and very I don't know. He says a lot of puzzles. He talks in a lot of nonsense. And anyway, at the very end of the conversation, this is where it gets interesting. He says, "Okay, but before I do anything or I like answer any of your questions, you have to answer some questions of mine. I'm going to tell you about a dream I had, and I want you to interpret the dream." So I say, "Okay, I'll interpret your dream." And it's weird. It's like a bunch of abstract imagery of like, figures eating other figures, like a figure eating a child, and then like waves of blood, or all this typical stuff, like real nihilistic, sad, bad, mad stuff. And I like answer the best I can for like any of it. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's your guilt for not fucking helping me," like that stuff. And at the end, he's like, "Well, what do you think?" And then one of my options is intimidate, and I was like, "You better fucking it's like close this gate and send me back, or that is the last dream you will ever have." And I put all of my pips into it, and it was 50%. And I got a critical success, and he did that.
Wow. He was like, "All right, I'm closing up this hell gate." You taught me.
Yep. You taught me. You threatened me.
Huh.
I guess, like, this is the thing, right? I understand what a threat means in Baldur's Gate because I saw threats get played out in the violence of the way that game works. Everything feels so abstracted. All of the characters feel barely even material, corporal.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means. Like, why? Why would this godlike being... Because when I get into combat, it sucks. Like, Nick Therodemon, murders the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Like, why does this godlike being... So, it's funny. I laughed after that worked. I guess that's funny. But it doesn't make sense to me given, the premises this game has laid out.
Yeah. I think that this game, like I was saying earlier, I think that this game, because of the Numenera setting, has a very hard time with tone. And I think that every NPC... I'm trying to think of any that stand out. Maybe the guy who is the mayor of the undergrowth or whatever it was called.
Boss Hog.
Yes. I think he might be the only character who isn't a party member who has a different tone. Everyone else is written with the exact same voice of lofty pseudo metaphysics to them.
Yes.
And I think that contributes to them feeling kind of paper thin and immaterial, because it's well, here's just more words from the same weird computer I'm talking to.
Yeah.
And it's because we're moving so quickly through these areas, and these characters don't really have much relationship to one another. So you never really...
They don't stick around in any kind of way.
And you never really get to see a triangulation of opinion about any of them. So two characters having an opinion about a third character that lets you see, oh, there's a little bit of depth and complicated relationships going on here. And it's no, this is here's the evil god and people worship him.
Yeah, and I think it's also on a mechanical level. I think that it is important, if you want to attempt to avoid a extreme sense of ludonarrative dissonance. It's nice to wrestle with a game and figure out what does power look like in this game. What do hierarchies look like in this game? As far as I'm concerned, the single most powerful entity in this game is the Nyctotherodemon. I don't know... Inafir seems powerful. He has a whole dimension he's lord over. It's called the Endless Gate. It seemed to be giving these memorialists a rough time. How... where are they in terms of, power and influence... and just actual their ability to affect the material world versus the hyper fantasy bureaucrat that I talked about with like 4 arms and 4
Yeah.
eyes. Like, how do these things interact? Because in Baldur's Gate, like there are plenty of criticisms we can level at that series, and even maybe Planescape, Torment. I felt like I understood the way hierarchies worked in those games, right? The different orders of wizards or the harpers or what have you. Things felt like it wasn't just 2 ships passing in the night. There was some real engagement there.
Well, even, I mean, I think that's a really good thing to point out, because I think even Planescape Torment manages that, because basically every character, somewhere in their dialogue, no matter who they were and where they were in kind of like the material hierarchy of the world, they would be like, yeah, that sounds cool, but don't mess with the Lady of Pain. You don't want to get her attention.
Yes.
You know, whether it's Farid or, the weird clergy guy or the lawyer or Fall from Grace, all those characters, there's this implicit thing of like, well, there's a boss of this whole place, and we don't mess with her. And even that kind of thing is beneficial. And I guess theoretically in this game that could be the changing god, except the whole thing is that people hate him and think you can do bad stuff to him. You know, he's fair game. So yeah, anyway, but I didn't do that quest line.
Anyway, that's how it happens. I close the damn gate, and once you close the damn gate, once I close the damn gate, I just walk through the portal in the Changing Gods tomb. Was there like a mic drop in the Changing Gods room that I missed? I don't think there was. I don't think there was like was there a Garion's chest with a note?
There was
there
was this implication. I forget the exact stuff, but you have to look at a couple paintings and then interpret those paintings in order to get through the gate. That was kind of interesting, but no, there was no. And by the way, you were ball spawn the whole time. Moment. There was no like. And by the way, there's several different types of you who have all been alive and poisoning your journey through life. That didn't happen either.
Yeah.
Well, yep. So I walked through that portal and got to Miela Vest, and that's where our next episode is going to pick up.
That's the next one. Thanks so much for joining us. Any shout outs that we append to the end of the episode?
Oh, you got follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/rangedtouch to get some Twitter updates from us. We've been streaming a little bit more regularly now. Or just more often than we have previously. So you can get up-to-the-date information on that, twitch.tv/rangedtouch. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, and you are for some reason listening to the middle episode of this series, you should do that. Hit that thing and then hit that little bell button to get all the alarms or whatever. I don't really know how YouTube works, but you can do that. If you enjoyed this episode, tell people about it. The best thing for us is always word of mouth, and so telling people about the episodes that you liked and about the video content that you liked always helps us out. If you're watching the video, you can go down to the description here and you can find the podcast. If you are listening to the podcast version of Mages and Murderdads, you can do vice versa to find the video. This season's theme is done by Chris Hunt. You can find out more information about him down in the description below. If you really, really like this and you got all the way to the end of this long series of plugs I just gave you, you can support us on Patreon. Patreon. Let's go. Well, just find it. It's in the description down there. And if you want to talk about this episode, you can come to our Discord, which is also down in the description. You can click that link, and you can come right in and start talking about how much you like death cults.
God, you can talk about anything. There's so many sub channels, and we only moderate half of them.
Well, I moderate all of them except for the Nintendo Switch.
That is truly.
I have it turned off. I don't see it. Anything could be going on in there. I don't know about it.
Okay, I should probably.
You should be the moderator for that.
Okay. Well, fun. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and ciao.
In the year of the turret, a great host will come from the east like a plague of locusts. So saith the wise wise Alondo. When shadows descend upon the lands, our divine Lord will walk alongside us as equals. So saith the great Alondo.